Why is it when we spend even just a little bit of time moving our bodies that we tend to feel a little bit better afterwards? Even just 5 or 10 minutes can often make the difference between feeling overwhelmed and then feeling a little bit more grounded again. Well, that's the magic of movement, and that's the magic of mindful movement. Mindful movement means we're bringing our brain and our mind and our nervous system along for the movement ride. Because when you're thinking about how your foot is, when you're noticing the sensation of the hamstrings in a stretch, when you're listening to a very specific cue about where to turn your head or how to move your shoulder, it anchors you into your body. It brings you into this present moment. And so it's not just present moment awareness of the mind, but it's present moment awareness of the mind anchored in the physical sensations of your body through movement. And that's huge. It's actually so huge. Mindful movement, what we do in a yoga practice, what you can do on a walk, what you do in the gym. There's nothing exclusive. There's not one exclusive activity for mindful movement. Mindful movement means we're moving our bodies and we're really paying attention and aware of that experience. And don't you notice, when you're engaged in mindful movement, you're not thinking about your to-do list, you're not thinking about all that other stuff that's going on. You're here in the moment. And it's especially important, mindful movement, because when we're moving our body and we feel kind of better afterwards, well, yeah, because we are now that through the movement of the body on the physiological level, what we're doing is increasing circulation for one thing. We're increasing circulation into quite often places that maybe don't get as much circulation when we're sitting at the computer all the time and doing repetitive I don't want to say repetitive movements, repetitive lack of movements, like again, sitting in the car, sitting at the computer. And then we start moving and we bring that awareness through the mind, but we bring more movement into the hip joints. We bring more movement to the spine. So we're bringing that wonderful circulation and feeding all of the trillions of cells that make us us. And that is so important and so big. And I think it's one of our best tools that we have to navigate stress and to navigate changes, the inevitable changes that are going to happen in our lives. And with the nervous system, bringing your knowledge now, so just knowing, and I'm sure you know by now, hopefully that, yeah, for sure, I do feel better when I move, so something's to that. But let's talk about the nervous system with that. Your nervous system is what I like to say, it's your best friend. Because your nervous system is really always looking out for you. It wants you to feel balanced, and your nervous system wants you to feel safe. And what we can do to help our best friend, to help our nervous system help us feel balanced and safe, is to learn ways to have resilience, learn healthy ways to navigate stress. Because here's the thing, stress is always going to happen. And I'm not saying that with the glass not half full opinion here. This is the way of life. There are stressors that happen every day. And in fact, that's the way we're designed. We are designed to move through stress. But let's get a little bit clear on the definition of stress here. I'm not talking in this case about that low-level, constant state of stress that many of us in this world, especially in this world right now, feel. What I'm talking about stress is more stressors. When you walk out of the door into the world, we are inundated with little stressors, but it's how we deal and respond to those little stressors. I'm about to cross the street. Is it safe? Should I? There's a car coming. We make these split-second decisions that we're so used to doing that we don't think twice, but that's that nervous system response to those little stressors. We're making decisions and responding appropriately. A car came, better get across that street a little bit faster. Car drives past, I'm safe, let's move on. That's a healthy nervous system response to stress. Not so healthy nervous system response to stress is, I cross the street, a car is coming out of the blue, I make it to the other side, I'm safe. Intellectually, you know you're safe, but you may still hold on to a longer held feeling of anxiety about that scenario. That scenario is in the past now, but you're moving forward, walking down the street in this case, maybe still chewing on feeling, and your nervous system doesn't know you're actually safe because your nervous system has been patterned to stay in that constant state of alert and stress due to past trauma, due to different types of being able to sort of misregulate in the nervous system. Right or wrong, good or bad, this happens to many of us. But this is what I want to uncover and unpack a little bit in this conversation together about the nervous system and the brain and our body, is how do we learn then to have that healthy response to stress so that when bigger events in our life happen, when we lose a job or lose a loved one, when a pandemic hits the world, what do we do then? How do we navigate those big stressors where they're real and we're going to feel a response to them, and we're going to feel a stronger response than that, oops, that car seemed close, cross the street, I'm safe, phew, let's move on, right? How do we navigate those bigger ones? Well, again, one of our biggest tools is movement. But movement doesn't always mean, okay, I'm going to step onto my yoga mat, I'm going to do a class, I'm going to do a flow class or whatever it is, or it doesn't also mean now, oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed and stressed, I should do a restorative class and just lie on a bolster and do nothing. It can mean those things, but here's the thing, everyone. It's important to have a toolbox, a whole variety of ways to navigate stress so that we can find that nervous system regulation. Because one thing that's great for my nervous system in one scenario may not be right for your nervous system in that same scenario. We're all wired differently. And in fact, something that's good in my nervous system today for a scenario might actually not be the same thing that I need the next day in that same scenario. So having a wide array of nervous system tools in your nervous system toolbox is really important. And I'm going to go through some of these ideas with us, and then you can play around and see what's right for you. So one of the go-to things that I think we're taught a lot when it comes to stress is calm down, slow down, lie, meditate, sit still, do shavasana, do a restorative class. We tend to get pushed towards stillness. And that's not a bad thing, but it's not going to be the cure for everybody. And it might be you. You might have gone to a yoga class and you actually might have been in a really high state of stress arousal in that sense, right? In that high anxiety state. And then it's shavasana time. Or maybe it's a restorative or a yin class where it's really slow and you're holding a pose for a long time. And maybe the teacher's saying, oh, this is so great, so good for us, da da da. And you're sitting there going, actually feeling more stressed because the stillness is not what you actually needed at that time. And for others, the opposite might be the case. That might be exactly what you need. But just know, this is something that I want to really get across here in this conversation about the nervous system, is for many of us, and if you're a yoga teacher watching this, don't assume that stillness is going to be the key for everybody. That's not, again, we need a wider range of tools in our stress release toolbox. So another way movement can be helpful. So yes, for some of us, some restorative poses, cozying up in blankets, pillows, feeling nourished and supported, that's wonderful. If that doesn't feel wonderful in a scenario, and you actually have this feeling, and this is how I feel in the body, the best way I can express it is, like that kind of electric feeling of anxiety. And so sometimes in those cases, it's stomping your feet, even having a 2-year-old tantrum type experience where you're stomping your feet, you're flinging your arms, right? It's just getting that, and working with the breath and getting that big excess energy out of your body in any sort of way. Whew, that can be really good. For others, it's even doing things like lifting weights, getting a heavy object into your hands, and that heaviness can actually be quite grounding, and that extra sense of work that you have to do to push that weight above your head or however you're doing it can be very soothing for some of our nervous systems in some instances. Other things like moving your body through art. So when I say art, don't expect you're going to have a masterpiece here. When I say art is maybe grabbing your kids' crayons or going to the dollar store if you don't have kids, grabbing crayons and a big huge piece of paper, find a color that really suits your mood and scribble and just get it out like that. Because that's movement. Think about that. Again, we're channeling some of that excess out into an expression. We want to express, we want to feel our feelings. Another thing about our nervous system and our brain, we have feelings, they arise. We don't want to push, we don't want to numb, we don't want to, right, push it all away. Even if those feelings are uncomfortable, even if they're rage or anger or grief or sadness or whatever those feelings are, they're there to show us and teach us and tell us something. So feel them. Okay, I'm feeling angry, and then you do your stomp and okay, wow, that went from 90% of anger, man, now I'm down to 40. It may not have totally gone away, but 40% more or less grounded, okay, or less angry. Okay, now what? Now what will feel good? Okay, maybe I do need to grab those crayons. Scribble, scribble, scribble. Okay, now I'm down to 20%. Right? Do you see how what we're doing in this example that I'm sharing with you is we're asking ourselves, what do I need? Okay, I see I've got these feelings. Okay, maybe I need to get them out. Do your thing. Okay, maybe I need to do a bunch of push-ups to get them out. Whatever that is for you. In each moment, we're responding. So instead of letting the feelings and the scenarios move us into overwhelm for too long, I think overwhelm is also okay, and I think in some ways part of what we need to feel. There's a lot of overwhelming things that happen to us. So feel it and then come back. Okay, what do I need? What will feel nourishing for me right now? Okay, maybe it's having a glass of wine with a good friend and laughing our heads off about nothing. Maybe it's watching trashy reality TV shows for a bit and maybe sitting on the ground. How's this? I love this one. Watch a trashy TV show like Housewife of Beverly Hills or whatever, with a glass of wine even. Sit on the floor as you do it, and even just do little movements, little like leg circles and wiggles, and just so you're getting a little bit of movement. Or maybe you need to be so tucked up into all the blankets so that you're in a cozy pile of wonder, and then you're watching trashy TV, and after that hour or 45 minutes is done, how do I feel? Do I feel a little bit better? Okay. So I'm sharing all of this sort of out-of-the-box stuff with you here in an online yoga studio where we do really focus mostly on movement, but of course mindful, loving movement, because I want to reflect, especially when we talk about the nervous system and the brain, that we're complex, the world is complex, and shit happens. Sorry for swearing, but not sorry, because I think we all feel that, especially in the times that we're in right now. Stuff is happening. So may this give you some ideas for how to work and move through all the things that will happen in our life, and can we be that a little bit more adaptable and responsive in a healthy way towards the stresses that do happen and will happen. So I'd love to hear any ideas that you have. Put your thoughts and ideas in the comments. Share with us. Add some of your favorite ways to de-stress. What's your go-to tool to adapt to help you adapt in times of change? Okay, and then hopefully that reading, you sharing your stuff, reading other people's comments will help grow our toolboxes for nervous system support so that we can be in our lives, we can be in this world that we're in right now and not forget about the heart, not forget about the beauty and the love that's here in the world, and that we can find the capacity to also help share that love in any way that we can. Okay, so may we support our nervous systems and brains by moving with love.